The apartment was too quiet for a conversation this big. The hum of the refrigerator, the soft click of a distant faucet, the stretch of silence between two people who once knew everything about each other. Malik felt every sound. Amara stood in front of him, suitcase by her side, her coat still clinging to her like a shield. She wasn't crying. That somehow made it worse. She exhaled. I need to find who I am when I'm not constantly proving I'm more than a headline. Malik didn't flinch, but her words sank in like needles. He wanted to ask, was it me who made you feel that way? Was it us? But instead, he nodded slowly. Then I hope you do. His voice cracked on hope, but he held his posture like Amara glanced at the wedding photos on the bookshelf. A beautiful frame around a beautiful lie. We've spent so long fighting what they expect us to be. I forgot to ask what I expect from myself. Malik followed her gaze. In the photo, they looked like the promise of something. Black excellence, young love, defiance wrapped in formal wear. I thought we were doing it together, he finally said. She looked at him, her eyes soft but unyielding. I'm tired of being a symbol, Malik, of walking into rooms and wondering who thinks I'm angry, or who's surprised I'm articulate. I want to just be. The door closed behind her like punctuation. Malik sat there, still wearing the sweater she'd bought him last winter, his hands clenched and unclenched on his knees. Was she leaving him, or the burden of them, the image, the pressure, the fight? Either way, she was gone, and he was left sitting in the echo of a love not undone by absence, but by exhaustion. He didn't cry, not yet, but the silence she left behind. That was loud. Malik stared at the empty spot where Amara's coat used to hang. Her absence felt like a question no one was willing to answer. That night, as he sat on the edge of the bed, memories came not in waves, but sharp bursts. The first photo shoot him in a tailored navy suit, Amara in a white sheath dress that hugged her brilliance. The company's Inclusion Matters campaign had positioned them as progress. You two are the future, someone had said, holding a camera. Like a mirror, they smiled, teeth white, eyes proud, backs straight, not too loud, not too soft, just enough to be safe. Amara had laughed then, but Malik now remembered how tight her hand was in his. They'd been the couple who spoke at student panels, the ones invited to brunches with executives who loved their story. A black man and woman who'd made it, whose degrees and diction made them digestible, marketable, behind closed doors. Though Amara would sigh when her hair was touched without permission. She'd cry when she was told, "You're not like the others." Malik had comforted her, but deep down he clung to the praise. Every compliment felt like a trophy in a world that rarely gave them medals. But Amara wasn't looking for trophies. She wanted truth, and every photoshopped poster and diversity panel was another plastered wall between her and herself. Once, after yet another conference, she'd said quietly in the hotel room, "I don't know who they love me or the me. I've learned to perform." Malik had kissed her and said nothing. Now, in the dim light of their bedroom, he realized she'd been slowly disappearing behind that performance. And maybe he'd let her, the picture-perfect life they built. It wasn't a lie because it was fake. It was a lie because it demanded silence. And Amara had finally decided to speak. Asterisk, asterisk, the rain tapped gently against the window, like a question too afraid to ask itself out loud. Amara sat cross-legged on the hardwood floor of her small apartment, a half-packed box beside her, a candle burning low. She flipped open the leather-bound journal she hadn't touched since college and began to write. "I didn't leave because I stopped loving him," she scribbled quickly. "I left because I stopped hearing myself." The apartment was quiet, too quiet, the kind that echoed. Her phone buzzed on the counter, another friend asking if she was okay, if she'd found herself yet, as if healing was an itinerary. She wrote more. "I was raised to be strong, to stand beside our men, to carry legacy, faith, and struggle without complaint, to make it and make it look easy." But no one ever asked what it cost. The journal filled with memories, her mother's tired eyes after double shifts, her aunts whispering about staying in marriages for respect, not love. At work, she'd smile through microaggressions, praised for her poise, but never her. Boundaries, even with Malik loving, loyal Malik, she had felt the weight of being the one who holds it all together. Never fragile, never selfish, never tired. The books she bought last month sat unopened beside the couch. Set boundaries, find peace, rest is resistance. She ran her fingers along their spines like prayers she hadn't yet dared to say aloud. Outside, the rain turned to drizzle. Inside, Amara wrote one last line before closing the journal. "I didn't leave to run away. I left to return to the part of me I buried for applause." And with that, she leaned back against the wall. The silence no longer heavy but hers. Asterisk, the community hall buzzed with reverence. Not noise, voices hushed. Music low, air heavy with memory. Malik stood near the back, hands clasped in front of him, eyes fixed on a faded photograph of a 1960s sit-in. A candle flickered beneath it. The warmth didn't reach his chest. He turned. Dan saw her. Amara stood beneath a portrait of Angela Davis, her lokes pinned back, her dress simple but intentional. They hadn't spoken in weeks, just texts about mail, logistics, silence. She saw him too, and for a moment neither moved. Then Malik walked over. "Didn't expect to see you here," he said, his voice low, not cold. "I never stopped caring," she answered. "I just couldn't breathe in the life we built." Malik nodded slowly. "I thought, if I kept showing up, doing right, we'd be okay." "You did everything right," she said softly, "but I forgot how to be real." He gestured toward the portraits. "We were raised on the shoulders of giants, but nobody told us how to carry the weight without breaking." Amara's eyes glistened. "They taught us to fight systems, but never how to rest, or leave, or be lost." Silence stretched between them, not like before, not sharp, but soft around the edges. Malik stepped closer. "Have you found what you were looking for?" he asked. Amara exhaled. "Not yet, but I'm finally asking the right questions." They stood side by side, gazing at the faces of those who'd carved paths with pain and protest. Malik's hand brushed hers. She didn't move away. In the candlelight, the air shifted. Not healed, but honest. Behind them, a young boy placed a flower beneath a portrait, and just for a moment, they remembered who they were before the world asked them to be perfect. Malik sat alone in his apartment, knees drawn to his chest, the faint hum of the refrigerator the only sound in the room. A half-opened photo album lay on the floor, pages curled from years of being ignored. He flipped through it slowly. His parents' wedding photo, black and white, slightly blurred. His father stood tall and stoic in an oversized suit, his mother smiling, but not with her eyes. Growing up, Malik thought love meant staying, enduring, no matter what. His father had stayed, day after day, year after year, quiet as wallpaper. His mother had stayed too, her body present but her voice distant, fading into the sounds of dishes and work calls and door clicks. They never argued, but they never held hands either. He remembered once asking his father why he never said, "I love you" out loud. The man had paused, sighed, and said, "You eat, don't you?" Back then, Malik thought that was enough, but now he wasn't sure. Maybe he had clung to Amara with that same logic, believing that duty was love, that silence was safety, that if he just kept showing up, she'd never leave. He hadn't learned how to let someone change without mistaking it for betrayal. In the stillness of that memory, Malik whispered, "I held too tight." The album slipped shut in his lap. Outside, laughter from a neighbor's apartment filtered through the walls. Real, messy, alive. Malik looked toward the door, not sure where he was heading next, but finally willing to ask what love could look like when it wasn't shaped by fear. The cafe was nearly empty. The kind of place that played soft jazz no one recognized and served coffee that lingered bitter at the back of your tongue. Malik arrived early, hands in his pockets, watching condensation bead on the window as the sun broke over the skyline. The same city, but something in him felt different now. Amara walked in moments later, no makeup, hair wrapped in a bright, patterned scarf, eyes clearer than he remembered. She gave a half smile as she sat across from him, her coat still clutched like armor. Malik didn't reach for her hand. He didn't have to. They talked, not about marriage, not about the past. They talked about healing, about how they'd both been chasing survival in different forms, him through control, her through escape, about the guilt, the quiet rage, the expectations they swallowed to be the strong black couple everyone admired but few really saw. "You know," Amara said, fingers tracing the rim of her mug, "maybe what broke us wasn't love. Maybe it was the silence we wrapped around it." Malik nodded. "I kept trying to fix what didn't need fixing. I just didn't want to be left behind." Her eyes softened. "And I didn't want to disappear trying to stay, for the first time." In months, there was no edge in their voices. No need to win or prove anything. They were just two people, finished, imperfect, choosing honesty over history. When they stepped outside, the wind had shifted. Malik zipped up his coat and looked over as Amara laughed softly at something unseen. She looked light, and so did he. They didn't hug goodbye. They didn't make promises. They simply walked in separate directions with the kind of peace that only comes from finally letting go of who you were supposed to be, for the freedom to become who you truly are. The city moved around them, and for once, they didn't need to chase it. Asterisk, asterisk, the community center smelled like new paint and hope. Malik stood near the door, his name stitched modestly on his shirt beneath the words Roots Rise Mentorship. The program had been his quiet project for months, built during late nights, funded by small grants and his own savings, and driven by a single vision, helping young black boys name their emotions before the world told them not to feel them. At all, today was the opening. The hallway echoed with laughter, real, full, unfiltered. Boys of all shades and shapes ran past, notebooks in hand, voices bright. Malik looked around and saw pieces of his younger self in each of them. The ones who were told to be strong before they were allowed to be soft. The ones taught discipline before tenderness. And then he saw her. Amara slipped in quietly, not late, not early, just on time. Her presence didn't surprise him. They hadn't spoken much since the cafe, but she had reached out when she heard about the launch, said she wanted to stand where healing started, not as a gesture of support for Malik, but for what they had both become. He smiled without needing her to see it. As the room settled and chairs were filled, Malik gave a brief welcome, a few words about purpose, roots, and voice. Then he stepped aside. Amara walked to the mic, calm and assured. In her hands, a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it slowly, looked up, and began. Love didn't leave me. I left what buried me. Left the smiles I wore like armor, the silence passed down like silverware. Each word rang out not angry, not apologetic, just true. Young eyes watched. Grown eyes welled up. When she finished, the room was still. Then, applause not out of politeness, but because everyone had felt it in their bones. Malik stepped back into the crowd, blending in like he wanted. His shoulders had never felt this light, not because he had everything figured out, but because he no longer needed to dot outside. The sky turned gold. Inside, the future echoed back in laughter and poems and boys who finally saw themselves reflected in love that didn't demand they shrank. Malik had found himself to dot, not through Amara, not through loss, but through the mirror of purpose, and this time it fit.